Hello, my name is Matt Storr, and I repair saxophones for a living. Today I would like to show you how a Conn Microtuner goes together and how it functions. The Conn Microtuner is a tunable neck that is found on certain, mostly pre-war Conn saxophones and some post-war Conn saxophones. The particular one we're going to be looking at today comes off of a Conn transitional alto saxophone from the early 30s. And while the interior and exterior varies a little bit from model to model, the main ideas are the same. And what you've got is here is where the neck cork goes. Here is the neck itself. And these two pieces go together. You can see there's that kind of, so there's the inside of the neck there. There's a little channel for this tongue to go in. And this pipe slides right inside there. And that's what it looks like pretty much without the barrel mechanism on. And this slides in and out, and it lengthens and shortens the neck to do your tuning. Now, the reason that they did this was because if you've got a saxophone neck, okay, so here is a Selmer Super Action 80 Series 2 neck that's been cut in half so I can see what it looks like and visualize it with a modern Autolink mouthpiece. That same thing has happened to. So here's your mouthpiece chamber, here's your neck, right? Where the mouthpiece slides on and off the neck, you're not just lengthening the instrument, right? Because of the difference between the inside of the mouthpiece and the inside of the neck, you're also adding volume in this area when you pull it out, right? And you're reducing volume in this area when you put it in because the inside of the neck is smaller than the inside of the saxophone. So Conn saw that, and because saxophones tune not just by length, but by the interior volume of acoustically important points, of which the mouthpiece area is always one, they thought they would like to take away that variable and make it so you put your mouthpiece all the way on to the neck cork here, and then you simply lengthen and shorten the neck to tune. And that way the interior volume of the mouthpiece is always the same. Whereas on most saxophones, the interior volume changes depending on where you put it on the neck. Okay, so here is how these work. You've got this interior portion here, which slides inside here onto the neck, right? And that has to be absolutely airtight. This tongue is used to keep this from rotating, right? And this barrel, which is threaded, sits on the outside and screws in and out, holding onto this piece here, and moves things back and forth. Now, before I go ahead and put this together, I am going to talk about problems. Okay. Now, most of the time, when you get a Conn with a tuner neck, if you take it apart, you're going to find that it probably hasn't been taken apart and completely cleaned and overhauled in years. And you're not going to see anything that looks this clean until you've spent several hours on it. Now, every time I do an overhaul on a Conn with a microtuner, I overhaul the microtuner. And it takes several hours to get it done right. You've got to clean everything. You've got to make sure that these surfaces are clean. You've got to make sure that they seal against each other airtight. If they don't seal, your main options are you can expand this inner tube a little bit until it seals against the inside here better, or you can plate it and bring it up through plating. And you can plate it in brass, you can plate it in silver, although that'll probably give you corrosion in the end. Only one time have I had to plate it to expand it. Most of the time, expanding it just a little bit with an interior pedal expander, like you find for flutes or piccolos, will work. So you need that to be airtight, otherwise it's a leak, and you don't want to have a leak at the top of your neck. But you also need it to be completely free. So once you do that, and you're going to have to get like down inside there's probably old grease and stuff jammed up down the bottom. A lot of times you'll see Teflon, pieces of like Teflon tape that people have tried to jam in there to get things either to be more slick or to seal. So it's going to take you a little while to get it clean. But once you've got it nice and clean like this, all the surfaces are metal only, none of that grime and grease that gets over it in the long term, then you can start putting it back together. And the way it goes back together is pretty easy. This piece goes in here, this piece goes on here, screws in, and then you screw it in this way. All you have to do is lubricate it before you do that. And if you want, you can do your neck cork first, because once you do your neck cork and you sand it, and I've got to straighten this out, which I haven't done yet, but I will do that after I put this video together. If you put the neck cork on second, it's good to take a piece of tape or something and seal this area up, because otherwise it's just going to attract little bits of cork from sanding it. But for the purposes of making this a bit easier for you guys to see, I've left everything bare so you can understand where everything is. So the way you want to oil it, and you'll find, okay, so the main differences in the internals is some of them have one tongue and some of them have two. The earlier ones have two, the later ones have one. The one with one is a bit easier to use. And also, this portion of metal here, there can be dents on this, which obviously then squeezes the tongue and it doesn't move smoothly. So you've got to get those out and make sure that everything is moving nice and clean. So what you want to do is take some nice thick grease that's specifically for musical instruments. Put some at the entrance of where the tongue goes. Put some at the entrance of where the neck inserts. I'm kind of having a hard time doing this through the camera, but hopefully you get an idea of what it looks like. And then put a little bit on the top of the tongue here. And then put some on the interior here. That's where the neck is going to sit against. I'm sorry if it's not completely in focus the entire time I'm doing this. It's kind of hard to do a good job and do good cinematography at the same time. And then put some grease on the interior here. Then you take your locking ring. That's the inside, the part that's smooth. That's the outside, the part that has the two notches, and that's what you use to screw it in and out. Then you are assembled pretty much, that's the tunable mechanism. Lots of times I've promised myself I was going to make a special tool to make putting these together and taking them apart easier, but I just haven't gotten around to it. Okay, now there's a little hole here, and into this hole is going to be a locking screw. And what we want to do is turn this locking ring until we see the hole for the screw come up. Oh, there it is. Okay, and you'll know that it's the right spot because it's going to be pretty much flat. This isn't going to move very much, but it will rotate a little bit. Okay, and then the little lock screw that goes in there. It's pretty fiddly, but hopefully I can get it without too much problems since I'm on camera. Oops. All right. Okay, so now that lock screw locks that locking ring into place, and you've got your tuner mechanism set here. And it should turn pretty freely, but obviously the grease is going to give it a little bit of resistance. So now we go ahead and set that down, and we grease up the threads. Okay, so we got the threads greased. This portion is already greased in here, and you can go ahead and put the mechanism together. Make sure you don't cross thread it. It'll turn really easy when it's clean. Well, not easy. I said it'll turn really smooth when it's clean because of all the grease, and because hopefully it's somewhat of a snug fit. It's not going to spin on its own, but it shouldn't require a whole lot of effort to have it move. Now you can see when I screw that in, the whole mechanism is moving in. I can screw it out, screw it in. Now the next thing you want to do is plug the octave pip. You can do that with your finger. And then you have to plug the interior of this neck pipe here. Okay, you've got the double socket neck. Some of them don't have double socket necks, the earlier ones, but this is being a Conn 6M transitional, it does. So take a rubber stopper and plug up the inside pipe here. Plug this part and do a suction test here. And you shouldn't have any air leaking through. If you do, take it apart, clean it, figure out where the leak is, probably in that pipe. It probably needs to be expanded against the walls, and then take care of that. And make sure that you've got a leak-free and easily operating microtuner. And like I was talking about before, you can see this little gap here. Tape that up, or cover that with something if you're doing a neck cork after you put it together, or if you're doing a neck cork on one of these that's already together. But that is the internal workings and mechanism of the Conn Microtuner. It's pretty simple once you get it. The main difficulties you're going to run into is getting this locking ring off the first time. And you can make yourself a tool. I made one time and then I lost it. Just basically a steel pipe, and cut it so you've got two grooves here, and use that to unscrew it. You can also use circlip pliers if you grind them down, or you can use just a regular screwdriver, will fit in there fine. And as long as it's not too jammed up and you're careful, you won't damage the piece at all. But of course you've got to remember to take out your locking screw first. And also sometimes a locking screw can be corroded, so that can be a bit of work getting out. And of course the whole mechanism itself could be stuck, and then that's a bit of work getting out. But just be gentle and do it over time. Use penetrating oil, let it sit for a while. The more intact it is when you take it apart, obviously the easier it's going to be to overhaul the mechanism. And overhauling this mechanism should be part of any overhaul done on an instrument with a tuner. And Conns are not the only ones with tunable necks, but they are the most common. And pretty much everything I've said here applies to all the tunable necks that you will find. Okay, so I hope that was helpful, useful, informative. My name is Matt Storr. I repair saxophones for a living, and that's all for today. Thanks.